Hi, welcome to Matt's Garage. Working on the Scout and trying to get the rear suspension tuned up. So many of you have seen my episodes on leaf springs and front suspension, and that's all done on the Scout and tacked in. I'm turning my attention to the rear now. The Scout was sitting level, and the reason it was sitting level was, sorry, let me back up. A little history. So when they did, whoever did the, I think they're out of business now, but 4x did the reverse shackle kit, which I've now undone, reversed my reverse shackle kit. When they did that, you know, you had those fangs, those reverse shackle fangs in the rear mounts through the frame, which were not aligned at all and not at the right angle, by the way, which annoys me now. But anyway, they lifted the front of the Scout up a bit. So when I did the spring over, my builder had set it up as if it was a normal Scout, but when he got done, the butt sat low, and I was like, I'm not taking a truck like this. It looks like it's like, you know, like a dog or something. So he put on these Confer 5 1/4 inch eye-to-eye shackles, so 6 inch shackle. I don't know. It's 5 1/4 eye-to-eye. So these are pretty heavy-duty shackles, and that got it level. Fast forward, I reversed my reverse shackle, and you know, when you do that, you never really know what the angles are going to be. And in the end, I cut my shackles for the rear too low. These are too small. So somewhere in between these two is the solution. And me being a glutton for punishment, you know, I didn't like the angle on the shackle either. It was too straight up and down. I wanted just a little bit of angle because I've shown on the board of leaves. Remember the board of leaves? It's there behind the hood. It's there behind the hood. You see it? The board of leaves? Yeah. That will forever be in the shop. Whoa, sorry, that's too close. It's too close. Too early, I'm too white. Okay. Oscar's so white. I want more angle. But I'm not confident about my shackle angle. So let me show you what I've done and how I'm going to address this issue. Just for reference, this is the front shackle hanger mount. The rear was the same, and I emphasize was. That's where the rear used to be, and there was a, you know, it hung there, and the shackle would go down to the spring eye, okay? And it was straight up and down. So what I'm trying to figure out is an adjustable way to mount a shackle to this flange here. The problem lies in that there's no real way to make this mount adjustable because if you put two side by side, they're really far apart, so your adjustability is limited to the center to center distance of, say, you mounted two of these. Plus you'd have to buy a bushing for each one, and that's just annoying. So I came up with a solution. Instead of the traditional where your bushing sits in the sleeve, in there, and then your spring go in there, I created my own custom shackles. Where are my tubes? Which I haven't welded together yet, but now the bushing will go into that sleeve, and I have made, which also have not been fully welded yet, these hangers, and they're slotted, as you can see, at 1 inch increments. So once I hang these up, I can adjust my shackle angle. All I have to do is take a bolt out, move it, put the bolt back in, my shackle angle is adjusted. Also, I drilled these for 2 holes because I'm not 100% sure about my length and the height. So now I've got basically full adjustability. All I need to do is weld this together and then put some webbing here for stability. And this is my new custom shackle. And I think these look pretty good. I'm going to show you how I fabricated these now. First, how did I get these nice bends into the shackle? For that, I'm going to take you through my mess of a shop and to my 20-ton press, which I have modified. As you can see here, I've got a piece of stock. And I basically took an L angle or angle iron, welded some plate to it, and then took some leftover from my engine mount and welded that together. And then I took another piece of angle, and that becomes my custom press brake. The key there is you want to keep pressure, because this will want to spread out as you're pressing down. So I basically stack up stuff on either side to keep the pressure on, and then I was able to easily brake the metal. So now for a couple of fabrication tips and tricks by Matt Galanians. Deep Thoughts by Matt Galanians. So if you don't have a portaband mount for this Swag Off-Road portaband mount, dude, I mean, unless you already have a bandsaw in your shop, this is a great solution. I bought this separately on Amazon, but this mounts keys into some body slots in the Milwaukee portaband, and then you have a bandsaw and a portaband. It's great, and then this helps you keep your angles correct. So the way I made these nice cuts and holes is I basically took all of my stock, and if you can imagine, I welded the corners together. Okay, so I knew I was going to cut the corners, so I just welded the corners together, and that basically made a 1-inch piece of steel. And then I drilled the holes, so the holes are perfectly uniform, and then I cut the corners off on the portaband, and then it fell apart, basically. So now I've got 2 sets of hangers, and these will have a backing plate, obviously. So that's how I did that. What you might also wonder is, well, how did you get, the fish mouth cut out round? And what I did was, same thing, these were flat before, right? So I welded them together, and then I just welded a piece of tube and a washer to the end of my stack, and that gave me a pilot for my hole saw. A little bit off, but they're all uniform, so it doesn't really matter. So now that sits into the bushing quite nicely, bushing sleeve quite nicely. Another tip I saw in one of these shows is when you're doing your welding this stuff together, you use, though this isn't a tip I saw, this I just figured out, but you use a bushing, the inner bushing sleeve to get your spacing right, or you could use your new bushing, but then if you put heat into it, it'll affect the rubber. So I just used a sleeve from previous, an old sleeve, and then I took some Coke carton paper and put the bolt through it, and that gives you just a little bit of spacing, so that when you weld and it shrinks, you're still able to get your bushings in there easily. Obviously I won't have 2 bushings when I'm done. I'm just using that to sort of get it square. These are stock Scout 2 rubber bushings. People say go poly, go poly. Honestly, these are so much softer than the poly ones, so you get a much cushier ride. The problem with Scouts is they're 2-inch leaf springs, and if I could turn back time, I would have converted the whole Scout over to 2.5-inch leaves. Jeeps are 2.5, Chevys are 2.5. Like, you just have a wider variety of bushings and mounts and everything. With the Scout, it's super goofy. Case in point, this bushing and the poly bushings, they have an outer diameter of 1 3/16. Jeeps are 1.5. So I had to go order this special tubing that's 1.5 outer diameter, 1 3/16 inner diameter, 0.156 walled. I bought a 1-foot-long section of it, and I cut that down, and I'm going to use that to mount, and then I just bored it out a little bit so it'll press in nice and smooth. So that's a pain, but if you need these MR500 silent blocks, also known as RB127s, call IH Parts America. That's where I got all mine, and they're still available. For how much longer, who knows? So that's my rear suspension setup. Super excited to weld this together. I don't know when I'm going to weld it together, but when I do, it's going to be amazing. See you next time on Matt's Garage.